Hi guys, Miss King here. In this screencast, we're going to look at cell transport. Our indicator states that we need to be able to explain how facilitated passive and active transport help the cell to maintain homeostasis. Remember, what that means is no matter what changes on the outside of the cell, everything on the inside of the cell must stay the same. Okay, and our cell membrane is what helps the cell to maintain homeostasis by controlling what goes out and what comes in to the cell. So in order to understand that homeostasis, we need to take a closer look at what the cell membrane looks like. First of all, the cell membrane, again, its function is to regulate what enters and leaves the cell, and then it also provides a boundary. Now, the cell membrane is what we call semi-permeable, or we may even see it as selectively permeable. And what that means is it's going to be able to select various materials that it wants to go in and out of the cell or pass through the membrane. So the different characteristics dealing with going through the membrane is usually going to be about the size of the molecule, the concentration differences that are inside and outside the molecule, and then the polarity. So looking at the size of molecules, right here is we'll call it a small sugar molecule. It's very tiny, so it's probably going to be able to pass in and out of that membrane fairly easily. But if we look at this second molecule, we'll call this one a protein. It's a lot bigger. It's probably going to have some trouble going in and out of that membrane. So the cell gets to select what goes in and out. Now, our cell membrane is what's called a fluid mosaic, and it's called a fluid mosaic because it's flexible, and that means that the molecules are able to move around inside the membrane. There's actually 4 components that we're going to look up that make up our cell membrane, and we're going to do that by drawing a diagram. So let's start with our first component. Let me turn my pen tool on. The first component of our cell membrane is called the phospholipid bilayer. Now let's go back and remind ourselves what exactly a lipid is. I'm going to draw one down here in the corner. That's one part, and then we need to have something kind of like that. So this, let's just put right here, is a lipid. And to remind ourselves the parts of the lipid, this one right here is going to be called glycerol, and we'll call that the glycerol head. And then these 2 little things down here are our fatty acids. And in the cell membrane, we call them tails. Okay, so the glycerol part of that molecule is going to be what we call hydrophilic. Okay, remember hydro means water and phil means loving. So this part of our cell membrane likes to touch water. The fatty acid tails are what we call hydrophobic. And remember, hydro is water, phobe means fearing, so the fatty acid part of these lipids do not like to touch water. Alright, so let's go ahead and start drawing our cell membrane. So we need to start with our phospholipid bilayer. So I'm going to do a few kind of like this. I'm going to do a few more down here, and then don't forget your tails. Okay, so kind of like that. And let's put a bracket and label this. This is number 1, the phospholipid bilayer. We use our word bites. Bi means two, so that means there's two layers. This is one layer, and this is one layer. Okay, now we said that our glycerols are hydrophilic, they like water, and our fatty acids are hydrophobic. So this inside area of our membrane is what we're going to call the hydrophobic zone. The hydrophobic zone means that there's no water allowed. Okay, no water is allowed. And that's the first component that makes up our cell membrane. So what I want to do is I'm going to add some more phospholipids, but I'm going to leave some space in here. We're going to put something else in that space, but let's put a few more phospholipids in our cell membrane. We'll come down here and put a few. And then we'll come over here, we'll leave some more space. Oops. And then don't forget your second layer. And then we need to go back and put our tails on our phospholipids. Okay, kind of like that. Now the second component of our cell membrane is a special protein structure, and we're going to draw it in these big spaces that we just left. So let's put two little protein structures, kind of like that. Looks like an empty hot dog bun. And then I'm going to do another one over here, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. It's going to look kind of like that. So those are two protein structures. I'm also going to put one on the outside, kind of right like that. And then we'll put another one right there, kind of like that. Now let's put our labels on here. We said this is a protein. Put it right here. So this is number 2. And this is called a protein channel. Okay, protein channel. This one over here is called a protein pump. And that's why it looks a little bit different than the first one. So the proteins, what they're there for is to make tunnels for materials to pass through that hydrophobic region of our cell. Okay. Tunnels for materials to pass through the hydrophobic zone. Okay. Now, this protein and this protein are called integral proteins because they go all the way through the cell membrane. They pass through the whole bilayer. This protein and this protein are what we call peripheral proteins because it does not pass all the way through the membrane. It just sits kind of on one side of the membrane. And that is our second component for our cell membrane. So let's look at the third component. And let me change my pen. Our third component, we're going to put it actually on the inside in this hydrophobic zone. We'll stick one, we'll put one right here. And it just kind of sticks out like that. We'll put another one right here. Kind of like that. We can put another one right here. There's probably a bunch of these within the cell membrane, so we'll put a few of them in there. And these are called cholesterol molecules. Now, let's put a label. Let me fix my pen. There we go. All right, so this guy is called, this is number 3, cholesterol. And the purpose of cholesterol in the cell membrane is to help the membrane stay flexible. So let's put that it helps maintain flexibility. All right, and we have one more component that we need to add. I'm going to change my pen one more time. Let's put one right here. Kind of like that. And then we'll put another one right here. Kind of like that. Now, these guys, let me change my pen again. These guys are called carbohydrate chains. So both of these are carbohydrate chains. Okay, and the purpose of the carbohydrate chain is so that the cells can identify each other. So we'll put that these are for cell identification. Or for cell recognition. For example, if you have invading bacteria in your body, then it needs to have these little special carbohydrate chains for your white blood cells to say, oh, this cell's supposed to be here. But the bacteria cells don't have those, so the white blood cell can say, okay, this guy doesn't have those carbohydrate chains like it's supposed to, so we need to get rid of it. It's not supposed to be here. So that's what I mean by cell recognition or cell identification. Now, this one we have attached to our lipid bilayer. So we're going to call it a glycolipid. This one is attached to a protein, so we're going to call it a glycoprotein. And remember from our previous units, glyco means sugar, so it's a sugar that is attached to a protein. And this one is a sugar that is attached to a lipid. And that's why they're called glycolipids and glycoproteins. Okay, and these are the 4 components. Carbohydrate chain was number 4. Those are the 4 components that make up our cell membrane.